Lesson 0, Getting Started. Required/recommended tools. Pens, fine liners, size 0.5. At its core, Drawabox consists of 7 lessons. There have been others, and there will be others in the future, but when you think Drawabox, you're thinking of lessons 1 to 7. While the other lessons have had other recommended tools ranging from Pierre, Noir, Conte, Paris pencils to digital media, the core 7 lessons should be done with ink. Specifically, a style of pen known as fine liners. In some places they're also known as felt tips or technical pens, but these can also refer to different kinds of tools, so make sure you compare them to the image above and the different brands mentioned here. Basically, as you can see in the image above, their tips have metal barrels with a felt nib. I'm not here to try and teach you how to draw with ink, thank goodness for that, as I'm a digital artist myself. I have chosen these kinds of pens, however, because they complement the lesson material and the concepts being covered, and more than anything they help encourage the kinds of habits and respect for your line work that goes hand in hand with everything else I'm trying to teach. I explain this in greater detail in this article, Why Ink? They do that by producing a rich, dark line regardless of how much pressure you apply. Their only dimension of variance is in the weight of the stroke. The 0.5 size for most brands is ideal, as it allows for a great range of weights. I do not want you to use different pens in the same drawing. Don't go drawing in a 0.3 and then going over it with a 0.5 or anything like that. Ideally, if you can, pick up the 0.5s in bulk. Aside from that, the brands I've used include Staedtler Pigment Liners and Faber-Castell Pitt Artist Pens. Their sizing is different. F is the equivalent to 0.5, but you're not limited to these. There are many other brands ranging from Copic Multiliners to Sakura Microns, and hell, even Sharpies. The Sharpie Ultrafines and the Sharpie pens will do. Just make sure that when you're drawing with these, that you're not applying too much pressure. Students have a tendency of damaging their pen tips this way, which reduces the flow of ink and forces one to draw with the pen held at a higher angle to achieve the same rich marks. Most think that their pens have just died, but these things can actually last for a good while, even with all the drawing that we do for these lessons. That said, do expect to end up buying quite a few if you're in it for the long haul, from lesson 1 to 7. Pens can get a little pricey, so find a brand with a price point and quality balance that works for you. It's worth mentioning that since students sometimes have trouble finding fine liners at reasonable prices, Drawabox is now selling them in packs of 10 for $16.50 US, with free shipping in the US and other international options available as well. If you can get your hands on pens from local art supply stores, then that may still be a better solution, but this is largely to provide an alternative to many of the less than ideal options out there. Paper. All I ask is that you don't draw on lined paper or, like, napkins. In fact, above all else, I highly recommend using regular printer paper. It's a great size, A4, and will allow plenty of room to think through spatial problems. As you get smaller and more cramped, this can become a problem. It's not going to fold back over while you're drawing like a sketchbook might, and it's not going to leave you feeling afraid of ruining a sketchbook. If you insist on using something fancier, try not to go too small, and if it's a sketchbook, ringed is better as it allows you to fold the pages back and get them out of the way. Also, another thing to keep in mind is that you should not be using ink on paper made for graphite or charcoal. Paper more similar to printer paper, which again is the ideal choice for these exercises, is great, but anything rougher and with more tooth to it will drain your pen's ink more quickly. Other tools. Certain lessons and exercises will require other tools as well, ranging from simple rulers, generally you can use any sort of straight edge, to ellipse guides and French curves in lessons 6 and 7. Ellipse guides / templates come in sets and can get expensive, but you can usually shop around online and find them for cheaper on places like eBay. They are extremely useful, however I wouldn't recommend buying them until you've actually reached those lessons. Once you do, they are a sound investment. There are also master ellipse templates, which are essentially a single ellipse guide featuring ellipses of several different degrees, but limited to a few smaller sizes. These are generally adequate for lessons 6 and 7 and are way cheaper. Beginner's shopping list. If you're planning on going to the store or hopping onto the internet to do some online shopping, Specifically for supplies to jump into this course, here's a quick list of things you'll want to pick up. Some are required, others can be improvised with other things you probably have at home. You can think of this as a summary of what's explained above. 0.5mm fine liners, required. If you, for whatever reason, can't get your hands on them immediately, don't worry, you have time. You can use a ballpoint pen for lesson 1 and the 250 box challenge, but it is best that you use a fine liner as soon as you can and that you have one before starting lesson 2. A4, 8.5 by 11, printer paper, required. This really is the best option for paper. Don't use sketch paper or other paper intended for dry media. It will dry your pens and hinder you as you draw. Ruler. Any straight edge will do, but you'll want something the length of your paper that allows you to draw precise, straight lines for the parts of exercises that require it. Coloured pens. This isn't necessary, and when they come up in the lessons, all that matters is that you've got something to draw with that is easily distinguishable from your main fineliner/pen. It's primarily for the purposes of analysing our work after the fact, so we can identify where we need to focus our efforts as we continue forwards.